Today I'm heading down to the farm and we're gonna load for the Scranton Farmers Market. Look how beautiful that sunrise is. I just packed this skid of bell, Cuban, eggplant, and I think one Italian. Mom's packing a skid right now of tomatoes, right here. Here is our half bin of cabbage. That is what we brought back from our last day of market. And then all of these are cantaloupe and watermelon mixed with a couple more collard greens and kohlrabi on top. So Dad's in the skid loader right now. I'm gonna head up on the truck and we're gonna start packing this thing basically as full as we can get it. We kind of know exactly how many bins we need to fit on here. So even if a bin or a pallet isn't quite extremely full, it's okay because, you know, we have the room. I would have showed more of the actual loading process, but Dad got here a couple minutes before we did and he hit his head pretty bad on the cooler door. And so I was doing a little more than what I usually do just because I was trying to make up for him because he had to hold ice on his head. It was pretty bad. We just got done, went out and picked corn. That's these two bins right here. We have a little bit of space left, which now we're filling with baskets and some dill, and then that's gonna be it. You ready to take off for market? So I went off to market with that load, sold very well today, and then I actually left and came back early because it's extremely dry. We haven't gotten any rain now, and it's been a couple of weeks now again. Seems like we were extremely dry, then we actually started getting a lot of rain, and now here we are dry again. And so we gotta start running the irrigation. Luckily, we still left some of our lines out in the field, just like you see right here going through the peppers. The peppers don't look so bad, but the eggplant are looking kind of rough. I don't really know what happened there. I don't know why that's pulled out of the ground, but I guess it is what it is. Those down there, I don't know why they have brown leaves, but up there, just in general, the eggplant are looking very wilty. Now, it is like 95 degrees right now, and we are getting a little bit of air, but not much. So, you know, regardless whether they have a lot of water or they don't, they're gonna kind of look just wilty just from being stressed out from the sun. But we obviously know that they are dry, and we want to get some water to them. And also, in the meantime, we'll get all of these peppers here behind me and that whole pepper field across the way there. And so what I'm doing is just connecting the pipe back together from what we took apart earlier on, just so we could drive around. The nice part is that like our early batch of sweet corn is done. We do have pickles left, but like our first batch of cantaloupe and watermelon are done as well. So we don't have to worry as much about getting water to them, even though it would be nice because we do have a second patch of cantaloupe and watermelon, and we do have a second patch of pickles and cucumbers and zucchini. But this is already laid out, and we're hoping in the next couple days we are gonna get some rain, but obviously nothing's a guarantee. The weeds have really grown up. I don't wanna walk in there, but I'm gonna have to. This is the main line, and then there's this one pipe right here, and I think there's one on the other side, or maybe it's only one pipe in general that I gotta hook back together here. Should have brought the weed whacker with me. Right there is where it's gonna lay. So I got the pepper irrigation done. Now I come out here to the pickles. This is our first patch of 2 that we grow of pickles, cucumbers, and zucchini. And as you can see, there is drip line buried underneath all of that plastic, 1 drip under each row. And what's nice about right here is that we have the hose that we can hook right up to it instead of hooking a header line up to it and then pumping it out of our pond. And so I made up this little contraption here that you can just hook a hose up to. And so how it works is I'll come right over here. I'm gonna start with this row of pickles. I'll stick my pressure gauge in the ground so I know how much pressure I'm running, because if you run too much pressure through these, you'll bust it and then you can't water them. Or you have to find it and then fix it, splice it, do whatever, and then, you know, start again. And so then after you have your pressure gauge in there, you've got your end cap, your hose connect, and your connector to your drip line. And so it's very simple. You wanna try and not get any debris in there whatsoever, because how it works is when this water starts flowing through, there's what's called emitters. And depending on the drip tape you get will depend on how spaced those emitters are. These look like they're about 12 inches, maybe not even. That could only be around 8 inches. And that's where the water comes out of. If that gets clogged up with dirt and debris, it's not going to emit water, and then you're not going to be watering. And so try and keep it as clean as possible. Make sure this collar is screwed all the way back, nice and clean. Slip that on there like so. And then I'll tighten this collar down. Just like that. Now I'll go get my hose and I'll take, well, let me wash it off. There we go. And I'll hook it up just like any other hose connect. Get that screwed down nice and tight so there's no leaks. And now I can start the watering process. Now these rows are around 500 foot long, so it's not just going to build pressure right away. Even though it is, you know, pretty blown up there, it's not going to be that way out at the other end until a couple minutes goes by. And so right now I'm running around 10 psi, maybe 11, which is what you want to be running when you're fully pressurized, but it's going to be going up once everything pressurizes, because right now it's just flowing through as fast as possible to get to the other end. And so I'll just stay here and monitor that for a couple of minutes. Maybe I'll turn it down a little bit. If you start getting around to the 20 to 25 psi range, then you're really risking blowing it apart. So I try to never do that. And the reason I show you this is because this is actually something you guys can do at home in your own garden. You can get this drip tape, I think, at like your local ag stores. I don't know exactly how much you have to buy at a time, but most people's gardens are probably like maybe 20 to 50 foot long. 50 is actually pretty good distance. But anyway, all you have to do, run your drip tape through your garden. You can lay it right on top of the ground if you want to, and then just build your little header line, which is what it really is. Hook your hose up to it, and you can water for 2 to 3 hours without needing to mess with it whatsoever, instead of just taking, you know, and watering and spending time there. Maybe that's something you want to do, maybe it's not, but it's a little tip of information for you. When we do whole fields though, we'll have a whole header line. We'll have maybe 10 rows and we'll be watering them all at once. This is just something simple right here, right at our shed, so we don't have to get a whole header hookup, you know, run it to our pond like I was saying. So that makes it really simple. Right here is an emitter. You can see how it's starting to drip there now. And that's all it'll do for the next 3 hours, is just drip, drip, drip. It's not, you know, washing all the nutrients out of there. It's just soaking in nice. So now that that's stable, I'm gonna head down to the pond and start checking that out. This is a whole different ball game, way bigger. This is something you probably will not be doing at your own home unless you have a pretty big farm. So down there at the pond, which I'm gonna go down there in a couple minutes, is an irrigation pump with a suction line going down into the pond. That's gonna suck water up out of the pond underneath the ground, and it surfaces right here. Well, this is one of our locations where it surfaces. I will then open this valve. The water will run through our pipe on top of the ground. It'll hit the field, and then it's gonna go to what's called a rainbird. And if you can see that right there, that's what that is right there. And what that does is that emits the water in a whole different way than what the drip line does. And how it works is water is gonna shoot out of this little tiny hole right here. And as it comes out, it's gonna make this thing flap. As that flaps, it's gonna spin it around and keep doing that for several hours until obviously we shut the whole thing down. And the cool thing about this is that this field is a little over 1,000 foot long, and we can do that all at once, which makes it really nice and really efficient for us to do that all in one night, watering not only these 3 rows of peppers, but these 3 rows of peppers and the eggplant right down there below that. Now, the downfall of overhead irrigation versus drip is that you're wasting a lot more water. You're also watering all those weeds in between the rows that you really don't want getting water. But that's something that's just gotta happen. You cannot drip, or it's not efficient to really drip unless you have it underneath plastic, at least for us, because we have our drip tape right on our plastic layer. So as we're laying the plastic, the drip is going right underneath, and then it's already in the ground for whenever we wanna hook it up. And that is this contraption right here. This is our plastic layer. I'm not gonna get into this whole apparatus, but this is where the drip is. It comes down here, feeds through this tube. Well, actually we have it off, but the tube would be right there, and underneath the plastic it would go. And so I'm gonna come over here to the irrigation pump. We have it covered with a tarp because we haven't used it in a while. That floating jug out there is what our suction line is hooked up to. It'll come up through here, through the pump, and then right into here, where it'll shoot right up to the field. Little side note, after I got the irrigation pump and the pipe set up, we actually ended up getting a 1/2 inch of rain, so I never had to run it, never even got the chance to, because by the time I got the tarp ripped off of the irrigation pump, the thunder started to crack and the wind started to pick up, so I quick put it back on, headed home, and by that time the rain started hitting. So that was actually a good thing, but now we're ready to go whenever we need to. I just got here to the pasture and I'm gonna feed the cows. You can tell they're hungry and waiting. What I just gave them was what we call chop, which is a mixture of corn, soybean meal, and oats, and other minerals. They enjoy it a lot. They can graze all day in the pasture, but they need this morning and night to really fatten them up. First job I'm gonna start out with is picking green tomatoes out of our high tunnel. All the red tomatoes we've been getting have been right out of the field, either for just selling by the quart on the table or selling the whole basket for canners. All these are gonna go to the market right now along with the sweet corn. This is one of our 2 high tunnels. This is the biggest of the 2. Obviously this is all tomatoes in here. We've been picking in here for months. Got a ton of red tomatoes, but now that we got all those picked off, we've kind of just been picking green tomatoes out of here and picking all the red tomatoes out of the field, like I said. And so obviously we're not gonna get them all picked. There is gonna be some that turns red and we'll pick those as well. They're actually like nicer and shinier just because they're not out in the field getting weathered and laying in the dirt. I'm looking for like very green ones. These are kind of just on the verge of turning. Something like this is what I want to fill my box with. That one just fell off. These aren't giants, but they are just a good sized tomato. And so I'm gonna try and get 4 boxes. That way I have for tomorrow for Friday and 2 boxes for Monday. Usually we don't pick that far ahead, but right now is the busiest part of the season. Like, we are just going absolutely crazy, getting everything picked, going to markets, setting up the farm market. And on top of that, my cousin is getting married this weekend and my sister is getting married in October. So we not only are just trying to get done what we need to, but also trying to, you know, work around these weddings. The wedding is kind of far away, so that means we gotta load the truck the night before, keep our reefer turned on, and then we'll go right from the wedding place to the Scranton Farmers Market on Monday. That's why we gotta get everything picked right now, and we gotta get some extra. That way we don't have to try and rely on picking it Saturday before the wedding or after the wedding or just something of that sort. Because the high tunnel is pretty big, I kind of can be pretty choosy on what I want. So I just skip around all over until I find or get the amount that I want. That's like the perfect green tomato right there. Some of you guys may be thinking, what do people do with green tomatoes? And as far as I know, basically you just slice them, put them in a pan, and make fried green tomatoes. But I'm sure there's other ways people cook them up. I just don't really know what that is. This is the biggest one yet so far. My goodness, that thing's a giant. This is one job you want to get done before it gets too hot, because when that sun comes out, it gets to be like 100 degrees in here at least. That big boy. If we're picking red tomatoes, we always take the stems off, because when you put them face down, that stem will poke into the next one, but green, you don't have to worry about that, which is nice. Sometimes they just come off. Other times they stay on. Wow, must have missed this bush last time. There's tons of them on here. That one's a little bit smaller, but that's okay. So I just finished up. It took me around 20 minutes. This box was my last one, and I got some of the biggest ones yet. But these other three are definitely not small by no means. And then on the way out, I seen two huge ones, so I couldn't pass them up, even though they will not fit my boxes, sadly.